Breaking up is very difficult, especially for young people, because the relationship symbolizes their entire future. Although they are aware that there are other people, it feels like the world is closing down and they must accept that the person has moved on. This is made more difficult by social media, as people can check in on each other and hear from people from the past. For example, when I was growing up, you would just take your phone off the hook or divert your attention. It's very difficult to resist reaching out to someone you truly miss and want back because you're always reminded that they are still there. Love, the loss of love, and sadness over death are all essentially the same. I did this research last week where participants were asked to write down the emotional and physical pain they experienced after a breakup. They discovered that women are typically more negatively impacted by breakups, reporting higher degrees of both physical and emotional pain, but that breakups also affect more women. I wasn't sure what that meant, but it struck me as interesting. It also resonates with my experience and observations. I mean, this could relate to a lot of things, and here I'm painting with a broad brush, but you know how comfortable one is feeling their feelings is going to strongly dictate how quickly one moves through grief. The hardest people tended to recover more fully, while men on the other hand rarely fully recovered. Such as trauma. A person will recover from trauma more rapidly if they are willing to experience the full range of emotions that they have come to associate with it, including its full depth and intensity. I'm paraphrasing Paul Conti here, so these aren't my words, but you know, people use a lot of coping mechanisms to prevent themselves from feeling painful or brokenhearted. They utilize states like sublimation to emotions like wrath, and they avoid situations altogether. Know that trying to self-soothe with multiple new partners, or try to self-soothe with alcohol doesn't work. All it does is prolong it is, because this map of space, time, and closeness needs to be broken. And the only way to do that is for the brain to be forced to face the fact that when they break up, they are no longer available. It seems as though the food beyond that wall has vanished, just disappearing, or that the previously available food has a wall between it and you. Will not be able to overcome it, as demonstrated by studies on extremely difficult animals where the subjects literally injure themselves in an attempt to overcome a barrier to something highly motivated. When people go through a breakup, they typically talk to everyone about it, which is another way that they stay motivated after the breakup. What went wrong? What did I do right? This, that, and part of that analysis is beneficial. It's not all that clear why one group would be effective, to put it mildly. At handling breakups, it's probably the capacity to fully experience the intensity of sadness and the ability to face it. I believe that from a very young age, women also possess this capacity, at least in part, because they learn how to pack down their emotions. So when exactly are we talking about pack down our emotions? I'm not a psychologist, but what we learn is top-down control from the forebrain to the autonomic nerve. Control is similar to the feeling that you don't want to jump off a high dive or give a big speech, but you have to kind of force yourself to do it. David Goggins is correct when he says that grief is an autonomic state with a negative valence. But it's also high levels of autonomic arousal with a negative connotation because you can have both high levels of autonomic arousal and happiness at the same time, which means you can be both very alert and aroused as well as happy. It's very alerting and sad, but we learn how to tamp that down. By lowering our heart rate, we can go about our daily lives as functioning humans. You know, there's a lot of that instead of letting ourselves uncontrollably collapse into a pillow. Some people are better at this than others. For example, the late Steve Jobs was a big supporter of scream therapies. He used to go up into the hills behind Stanford. In fact, he still owns a property there. I believe that the more we try to avoid that and sublimate, or just try to lean into the emotional states that we fear the most, the better. He was also kind of well known for screaming at people in the office, so it's obvious that he had a lot pinned up inside. You know, catharsis is the cathartic release of internal state that he felt would allow him to return a happier, nicer person. I can only speak from experience when I say that I would utilize my frustration or unhappiness to work 10 times longer and 10 times harder in order to achieve that much more. Focus is the process of taking your autonomic arousal, narrow aperture, and energy and directing it towards something that advances your life. In certain situations, this is beneficial because you still need to give and function, but it can also give you the illusion, I'll just say, that you're solving a problem because you have all the tools and resources at your disposal. Benefits of hard work. But what you don't do is remap that space-time closeness map. In 5 or 10 years, I promise, you'll wonder why you're so tired or why some things in your life aren't going well. And the reason is that, despite what people say, you never really allowed yourself to feel the feelings. Once you do, though, it's like a valve opening.